Hello crafters, this is Flavia and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be creating a simple note card featuring two fun techniques, dry embossing and wax sealing. I wasn't really planning on sharing this video, but since I learned a few lessons from all of the many mistakes that I made during this last crafting session, I decided to share in hopes that some of the tips that I have today will be helpful to you. Let's begin by dry embossing the panel that later I will adhere to the front of an A2 size note card. I like to mist the cardstock with water before placing it inside the embossing folder to avoid cracks and tears on the paper. By the way, this is the Spellbinders colored cardstock in the color Waterfall, and the embossing folder that I chose for today is also by Spellbinders. As you can see here, this embossing folder created beautiful patterns on the cardstock, and we could definitely use it as it is. However, today we will step it up a bit by applying white pigment ink over the raised portions of the cardstock just to make these leafy patterns really stand out. There are many ways we can do this, and today I will use an ink pad, and with a very light hand, I will gently rub it over the raised portions of the cardstock. Since this is a pigment ink, it will take a little bit longer to dry, so be patient and make sure it is completely dry before moving on to the next step, which is to trim off this panel. I first cut this panel to 5.5 by 4.25, and as you can see here, I used a leftover piece to decorate the inside of the note card. However, later I will actually take this note card apart because I meant to wrap this die-cut band around the panel before adhering it to the card base, and also because I want this panel to be 5.25 by 4 inches, so there is a white trim around the panel. So off camera, I trim off this panel one more time, and I noticed that it was way easier to adhere this panel to another card base for the second time around because there was no warping of the panel this time, and that is because in the back of this dry emboss panel there is another layer of cardstock from my previous mistake. I am really impressed at how flat this dry emboss panel is, and from now on I will always adhere a dry emboss panel to a piece of cardstock to help eliminate any warping of the paper before actually adhering it to the card base. To cut out these elements, I used two different die sets from the Sealed by Spellbinders collection, and I will make sure to list all products used in this video in the description box down below so you can check it out later. The reason why I wanted to wrap this band around the panel is so I wouldn't need to apply liquid adhesive to these very thin lines, also because I think it looks better this way. Moving on to the sentiment, today I will create a wax seal that stamps the word hello. And I was very glad that after many mistakes, I came up with a pretty easy method for getting a really good impression from intricate wax seal stamps, such as these very thin letters on the wax seal stamp that I'm using today. So my method consists of stamping the same image twice. For the first stamp, I will pour just enough wax to cover the sentiment hello, and I will actually press the stamp down really hard to make sure that the melted wax gets in all of those nooks and crannies. Once that is done and the wax has cooled off, using a pair of scissors, I will trim off all of that wax that is around my wax seal stamp so I can melt it again and stamp one more time. For the second time around, we will create a wax seal as we normally would by pouring enough wax to create a wax seal, and this time gently placing the wax seal stamp over the melted wax without applying too much pressure. The only difference here is that we kept that first layer on the wax seal stamp to guarantee a good impression of the sentiment hello. After a few seconds, I will remove the wax seal stamp and check out the amazing result. So one of my favorite things about wax sealing is that it is a waste-free technique, since we can always melt a wax seal again to give it another try when we do not like the result. So this method is simply about saving you some time so you can always get a good impression on your first try. And since I love how easy it is now to get a really nice impression, I will keep on repeating this process a couple of times to create a few more wax seals in different colors. And if you also struggle with getting a good raised stamped result, I hope you give this method a try. And now that I have created my wax seals, I will go over the sentiment hello with a metallic oil-based paint marker. And since this word is nicely raised thanks to that two steps method, it was very easy to apply this gorgeous silver color only to the sections that I wanted, and it took me no time at all. To adhere these wax seals to the note cards, I will use the Spellbinders Wax Seal Adhesive Circles, which is a really good and very strong adhesive. And on the right we have another note card that I created off camera using that same embossing folder, and the only difference here is that I applied white pigment ink to the back of the dry emboss panel, which goes to show you that we can actually get two different looks using one embossing folder. So this is all that I have for you today, and I hope you enjoyed this video and some of this information was helpful to you. For pictures and more information, make sure to visit my blog. I would love to have you there. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Take care and happy crafting!